30 years.
That's how long it's been since a Japanese man who hated horror movies created the most successful horror franchise in video game history. 170 million copies sold, 9 films, dozens of games, $11 billion in total revenue, the highest-grossing horror franchise of all time. And on February 27, 2026, a new chapter. Resident Evil Requiem, the 9th mainline game, a return to Raccoon City, the return of Leon Kennedy, and a new heroine no one saw coming. This video is about how one studio from Osaka built an empire of horror, nearly lost it, and came back to the top. Summer Game Fest, June 6, 2025. The final trailer of the show. The screen goes dark, ruins of a city. The police station players remember from '98, streets where they ran from zombies on the original PlayStation. Raccoon City, 30 years after its destruction. A new heroine, Grace Ashcroft, an FBI analyst, steps into an abandoned hotel. The camera switches to first person. Silence, darkness, creaking floorboards, and then a familiar voice. Leon Kennedy, older, with wrinkles on his neck that, as the director later admitted, the studio's female developers spent months perfecting, until they created a look that makes your heart skip a beat. The Japanese even coined a term for him, Ikeoji, rough translation, hot uncle, and then the logo. The letter Q in Requiem flickers for a split second and turns into the number 9, the 9th mainline game. Brilliant typography. The internet exploded. 5 million wishlists before launch. A record for the series. But to understand why Requiem is more than just another sequel, we need to go back 30 years, to the moment when a guy who dreamed of being a Formula One driver accidentally created an entire genre. 1993. Osaka. Capcom's office. Shinji Mikami, 28 years old. Grew up in Yamaguchi Prefecture. His father beat him almost every day. No video games in his childhood. Just the streets and karate. Dream, Formula One. Reality, failed entrance exams 2 years in a row. Then a university where he studied merchandising. After graduating, he got a job at Capcom. First project, a quiz game for the Game Boy. 3 months of working until 5 a.m. He wanted to quit, but his boss quit first. No one to hand the resignation to, so he stayed. After that, Disney games. Aladdin, Goof Troop, kids platformers. Nothing to do with horror. And then his boss, Takuro Fujiwara, calls him in and says, "Make a horror game based on Sweet Home," an old Famicom title. Fujiwara didn't pick Mikami because he loved horror. He picked him because he understands what fear is. And then Mikami made a decision that would define the next 30 years of the industry. Instead of a pure horror game where the player can only run, he gave the character a gun, the ability to fight back, to survive. The team pushed back. "It's a horror game. Why a gun? Isn't it bad if the hero can actually kill the monster?" Mikami had no logical answer. He just kept repeating himself until the team moved on. March 22nd, 1996. PlayStation, Resident Evil. Fun fact. The name was the result of an internal contest at Capcom's American office, because the rights to Biohazard in the US already belonged to a punk band from New York. Mikami thinks the name Resident Evil is nonsense. He still only uses Biohazard. Mikami expected 500,000 copies. The game sold over 5 million and created an entirely new genre, survival horror, a term Capcom invented specifically for marketing. After the success, Mikami became general manager of Production Studio 4. No longer a director, a producer. And those were, in his own words, the worst years of his career. 8 years of administration instead of creation, but under his watch, the series grew. Resident Evil 2, Raccoon City, Leon Kennedy. Resident Evil 3, Nemesis, the stalker monster whose mechanic the series would use again and again, all the way to Requiem. And under Studio 4's umbrella, Devil May Cry and Phoenix Wright were born. And then, Resident Evil 4, 2005. Mikami returns to the director's chair and completely reinvents the formula. Over-the-shoulder camera instead of fixed angles. A Spanish village instead of dark corridors. One of the early builds of RE4 was so different from the final game that it turned into a separate title, Devil May Cry. 96 on Metacritic, a revolution in the genre. The camera angle Mikami invented became an industry standard. Gears of War, The Last of Us, Dead Space, all of them stand on the shoulders of Resident Evil 4. But here's the thing, Mikami had promised that RE4 would be a GameCube exclusive. He told journalists, "If this game comes out on PlayStation 2, I'll cut my own head off." In Japanese, that's slang for "I'll quit." But even so, it was a loud promise. The game came out on PlayStation 2. Mikami didn't cut his head off, but he left Capcom for good. In his final Capcom game, God Hand, there's an Easter egg, a racing greyhound named Mikami's Head. 1996, created Resident Evil. 2005, created Resident Evil 4. 2006, left. The creator abandoned his creation. Mikami founded Tango Gameworks in Tokyo. The Evil Within, a spiritual successor to Resident Evil. Then, The Evil Within 2, Ghostwire, Tokyo, Hi-Fi Rush. In 2023, he left Tango. Said he wanted to give younger developers a chance. Believed the studio would be safe as long as it kept making games like Hi-Fi Rush. In 2024, Microsoft shut Tango down. Mikami posted on Twitter, "Tango closed. Sad." 2 words, 13 years of work. But the story didn't end there. Korean company Krafton acquired Tango and the rights to Hi-Fi Rush. And Mikami founded a new studio, Kamui. If you make a good game, someone will pick it up. So what happened to Capcom without its genius? After Mikami's departure, the series hit dark times. Resident Evil 5, more action, less horror. RE6 tried to be everything at once, failed. The lowest point in the series. And then Koshi Nakanishi appears. Not a rock star. Doesn't give flashy interviews. A designer on Resident Evil 5, director of a couple of spin-offs. Not the person you'd trust with the company's flagship franchise. But Capcom trusted him, 2014. Nakanishi starts work, and makes the decision that saved the series. Back to basics. First person, an isolated location, real horror. No explosions. Just you, a dark house, and something terrible inside. At the same time, the team was building RE Engine from scratch. Full name, Reach for the Moon Engine. Not Resident Evil Engine, as everyone assumed. Capcom was actually surprised anyone thought that, because in Japan the series is called Biohazard. If the engine were named after the series, it would be BH Engine. Why not use Unreal? According to Jun Takeuchi, head of Division 1, a generic engine from another company isn't suited for a game like this. They needed full control. 2017, Resident Evil 7, Biohazard. The Swamps of Louisiana, The Baker Family. First person, over 10 million copies sold. The series was back. And RE Engine became Capcom's secret weapon. The RE2 remake, 16 million copies. Village. The RE4 remake, 93 on Metacritic. And not just Resident Evil, Devil May Cry 5, Monster Hunter Rise, Street Fighter 6, Dragon's Dogma 2. One engine, dozens of games. Capcom entered a streak that fans call the CapGod era. Hit after hit after hit. 2019. Nakanishi starts work on RE9. First concept, an open-world online game. Wait, what? Yes. RE9 was supposed to be an online open-world multiplayer game. Nakanishi later admitted, "We realized that's not what the fans wanted." In 2021, a full reboot. 3 years of work, thrown out. Second attempt, pure horror with Leon. First person, no weapons, hiding from monsters. The team rejected that too. Nobody wants to see a timid Leon. He needs to fight. That's when the idea emerged. 2 protagonists. Horror, for a new character. Action, for Leon. Grace Ashcroft, daughter of Alyssa Ashcroft from Resident Evil Outbreak. FBI analyst, introvert. A good technical analyst with 0 field experience. Capcom deliberately created a heroine who can't fight. She's the prey, not the warrior. Her sections, pure survival horror. First person, stealth. A stalker monster that hunts you through walls and ceilings. You hide under tables, distract it with bottles. You flick on a lighter, and instantly regret it because the monster saw the flame. Leon, 14 years since his last appearance in a mainline game. Older, loaded with one-liners and a custom Porsche Cayenne Turbo GT that Capcom designed in collaboration with Porsche. His sections, pure action. Third person, zombies, explosions. And for the first time in the series, the player can switch perspective at any moment. 30 years after the destruction of Raccoon City. A string of mysterious deaths at the abandoned Renwood Hotel. The same place where, 8 years ago, Grace watched her mother get murdered. The FBI sends Grace. The DSO sends Leon. Their paths cross. Requiem. A prayer for the dead. For an entire era of the series. Now, the details that show just how obsessed Capcom is with quality. For the RE2 remake, they tailored a real jacket for Leon in London, then shipped it to Serbia for 3D scanning. For Devil May Cry 5, they cast live models in England, built real costumes from scratch, applied makeup, and only then turned it all into 3D models. With Requiem, they went even further. Grace's hair. You'd think, who cares? Capcom cares. Every single strand of hair is an individual object with its own physics. The Requiem team couldn't achieve the quality they needed for Grace's long hair. So the developers of another Capcom game, Pragmata, solved the problem for their own character and transferred the technology. The result: light realistically passes through Grace's hair. When she's hung upside down, her hair properly falls according to physics. 2 teams, 2 different games, 1 technology. That's what Capcom's ecosystem looks like. Nakanishi said that after RE7 and Village, which were disconnected from the main storyline, it was time to come back. RE7 and RE8 received high praise, but they were written somewhat separately from the first 6 games. So we decided, it's time to return to that story. Requiem isn't just a new game. It's an attempt to connect 30 years of lore into a single whole. February 25th, 2026. The review embargo lifts. 88 on Metacritic for PS5, 92 on Xbox, 91 on PC. Average of 90. The highest rated mainline entry in over 20 years. Critics praise the balance between horror and action. Call Grace the best new character in years. Some complain about fan service and an action-heavy second half. But even the lowest scores are 6s out of 10. Silent Hill, once Resident Evil's main rival. Konami stopped making games. Dead Space, 3 entries. Then the studio shut down. The Evil Within, Mikami's own series, studio shut down. And Resident Evil lives, 30 years. And every new game among the best in the series. In my Forza Horizon video I said, the key to success is identity. Knowing who you are, and not trying to be something you're not. RE6 tried to be everything at once, and failed. RE7 went back to its roots, and saved the series. Requiem combined both approaches. Resident Evil is about balance. Between terror and thrill. Between helplessness and power. Between I can't watch and I can't look away. Mikami built the foundation. Nakanishi built a cathedral on top of it. On February 27th, 2026, Resident Evil Requiem is out. Capcom proved that you can lose your creator and come back stronger. That a system can surpass a genius. That details matter. I don't know if this is the best Resident Evil, but I know one thing. If anyone can make a Requiem that sends chills down your spine, it's the people who 30 years ago put a gun in a horror game character's hands when the entire team said it was pointless, and turned out to be right. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe. I do breakdowns like this every week. Drop a comment. What's your favorite Resident Evil? And what do you think of Requiem? See you next time.